My name is Dr. Amadou J. Varmah. I'm also known as Basesh Haruhotep Tar, and that is the head scribe of the HolyQubtic Church of the Black Messiah. Teaching was something that I realized at a very young age, being under certain great teachers such as Baba Tumray, Sheikh Enti Diop, reading their books, as well as Van Sutermer, Cress Wilson, and the likes. And it inspired me what books can do and how books can expand your mind. Growing up and going to the Schomburg Library in New York City in Harlem, as a child, my mother would take me. And reading, she pushed reading on us so much. And so inevitably growing up in the conscious community as a part of an organization at the time, learning a lot of information on all walks of life, and then seeing that in this generation, there's still a need for some who can write to be able to put information forth for the next generation, especially those of us who have children. I've been in the teachings now 35 years now. I've been doing this. I've been teaching since I was 17, and so about 35 years. My main concern in the world today is the next generation. What are we leaving for them? What's the legacy? If we're not around to be able to speak to this next generation, what things are we putting forth that will allow us to speak to them? If we're not there. Garvey is speaking to us today. Elijah Muhammad is speaking to us today. Ivan Van Suterman, Ben Yochanan, Henry Clark, Francis Cress Wilson, Miriam Makeba, all of these great women and men, whether it's through their music or through their writings, they're speaking to us. Art Marley is speaking to us. So we have to learn, or we have to be able to do the same thing they did. We have to have some type of vehicle or mechanism by which to speak to the next generation, to tell them the things that we did that worked, and tell them the things that we wish we could have done, and then of course warn them against the things that we did that didn't work. So it allows us to have a fingerprint or a footprint or a handprint into the next generation. Religion is important for us because it's the primal, it's the very first thing. Spirituality. Some people don't like the word religion, but they'll say they prefer spirituality, but it's still religion. What they mean, Europeans and Indo-Arabs, Indo-Aryans, to bind you to that which isn't yours. And what the original word meant, that which binds us as a culture, as a people. So religion becomes very important if we have any goal of being able to turn the tides. You follow? Marcus Garvey said, one God, one people, one goal. Elijah Muhammad said, do for self and kind. Baba Tumray said, for of and by each other. Noble Drew Ali, all of the greats, all the great teachers. So religion is very important because you can't escape it. In a simple nutshell, you can't escape religion. It doesn't matter what you believe or don't believe. If your goal is to assist in the liberation of melanated people globally, then in some way, form, or fashion, you're going to have to touch religion. There's absolutely no way around it because there's too many of us, as the great Steve Biko repeated from Jomo Kenyatta, I should say it the other way around. There's no escaping it. There's too many of our people already religious to merely say throw it away. We just have to now take it and look at it with Africanized, African ears, African history, African tongue, African mind, and African hands to bring it across for melanated or African or Caribbean or indigenous people. Again, my inspirations would be people, again, such as the great Sheikh Enti Diop, Diba Mandela, Marcus Moshe Garvey, Ivan Van Suterman, Francis Cress Wilson, who we consider BBs and Babas. We consider them female and male popes. The BBs are the females, such as the great Francis Cress Wilson. The Babas are the males, such as Ben Yochanan. These are inspirations, and what really inspires me and not so much just their works, because I'm awestruck when I just think about the works that they did, but the selflessness and the self-sacrificing manner in which they did their work. They did their work with an understanding that they would never complete everything they set out to do, that they would not live to see everything that they set out to do come to full fruition, but that they played a key or major role in laying the foundations and putting together the pieces of the puzzle that we of this generation have been blessed to now be able to pick up. And if we can get this baton to the next generation, inevitably we'll be back where we're supposed to be. And so that's why those are inspirations to me. Here's the thing. When we say we are Christians, we say true Christians. And we're often asked, what do you mean a true Christian? Well, number one, Christians are those who say they follow Christ. True Christians are those who live the life of the Christ or the Christ. And we're coming from the African cosmology, the African theology, an African perspective. And this African perspective says that before Europe had its interpretation that it calls Christos in Greek, the Christ, we as Africans had an original theology or cosmology called Christ. And this Christ dealt with the Nazarene, the Nazarite, Asaru, the original crucified Savior, out of which was born the African, the Black African, who we call Yeshua, Christ, that some may say Black Jesus, but we prefer to just say Yeshua, Christ. So we are true Christians, but in the sense of obeying the original scriptures, living by those original scriptures, and advocating that those original scriptures were sent to the original people who are none other than the mothers and fathers of civilization, who you and I refer to as Nubian Melaninites, or Blacks, Africans, and those melanated people that you find across the planet today. In the same manner in which we look at Christianity, modern Christianity, and reclaim the African pieces that have been inserted or bleached and watered down to fit into Euro-Christianity, we do the same thing when it comes to Islam or Judaism. We realize that the original Jews, or I don't want to say the word Jew because that letter didn't come about till about the 17th century, but the original Hebrews, the original people who lived this original Hebraic faith, which is not what the Jews are presenting today, but those original people of the Bible, Genesis 10, were called Eber. And that's before Abraham's crossing the Tigris-Euphrates River. And these original Eber or Igbo or Mandinka or Yoruba or Hausa or Hosa or Afard or Effendi or Danakil or Hendendawa or Biga, these original people were the original ancient African Hebrews that others watched and took, watered down, bleached your doctrine, repackaged it as Judaism, and tell the world that they are the chosen people. So we do that with Judaism. Islam is the same thing. The land that you're calling El Gor, which was the original name, that was changed to today be called Saudi Arabia. That land was originally a part of the ancient Nubian as well as the ancient Ethiopian Kushite Empire. The distance between what they're calling Saudi Arabia and Sudan today is just the Red Sea. It's just a separation of a body of water, which they're calling a sea, then tell us there's sea or seas are not surrounded on all sides by land. Well, the Red Sea is surrounded, or Red Sea is surrounded on all sides by land, so it'd really be a Great Lake by their definition. So that Red Sea or Red Lake, as the ancient Hammurabians called it, that feeds or connects at some points into the Nile, that area is the smallest distance. And so the ancient people that we refer to of El Gor, the ancient Kushites, were African people. But somewhere along the line, the Indo-Arabs migrated in, and we are where we are today. Where Africa, Caribbean, North America, South America, Indus River Valley, parts of Asia, where melanated people are abundant, where we struggle today is for lack of knowledge. I think it says in the Bible, my people suffer for a lack of knowledge. So we suffer for a lack of knowledge. And that knowledge includes education, or would be encompassed by education. Education is not just what you learn inside the school. That's where you get more of edification or more of degrees, things that allow you to be able to get a job or create your own business or have some type of technical know-how. But true education, we also recognize, is what you get out of that classroom. When you leave the classroom and you have to take what you've learned up to that point in your academic world and learn to transfer it or translate it into real time, the world and environment around you. Today, the Caribbean and parts of Africa, we are suffering from a brain drain. And this brain drain puts us in a situation where having no abundantly technically skilled people leaves us in a position where other people, other races come in and are able to manipulate the situation for their betterment and leave you and I in a position of suffering. So education is extremely important. But in the manner in which you're educated is just as important, and how well you supplement that academic education with a cultural education also holds a great key. For writing, originally when we started writing, it started off as just trying to assist at the time my teacher, assist him in getting certain writings put out, inevitably having to do it myself, where I became the teacher, if you will. It changes your outlook. The understanding that the pen is mightier than the sword. It allowed me to realize that I have a opportunity, yet more so a responsibility, to ensure that anything that I've put pen to paper or have put computer keys to screen, I'm obligated to make sure, right? If we're putting the computer keys to the screen, I'm obligated to make sure, we hold an obligation as writers to make sure that the message that we're conveying has been analyzed, has been scrutinized, has been well researched, checked out, to make sure by its vetting that it's worthy of being read. Because we're living in a day and time when a lot of people have written books, from the conscious and unconscious community, from the religious to non-religious community. And that doesn't mean that everything that they've written makes sense or is beneficial. So for me, being a writer means I have an obligation to ensure to those who read the parchments which I put out that they're reading what has been thoroughly checked and researched, and not something that someone's just saying off the top of their head. To date, we've done about 71, 72 books. We didn't start off with that in mind. But what happens is, with each question that you're asked abundantly by various students or members or just people that you meet, each time that someone asks a question and you answer the question verbally, you end up, as you're answering the question, you end up saying, I've said to myself, well, that would make an interesting book. Because if this person is asking it, then chances are there are others that are asking it and just have not had the opportunity to necessarily say it to me. And so we allow the creator, we allow the universe, we allow our ancestors, what we call the Naturu Elohim, the African guardian angelic host, to guide us as to what needs to be written, what needs to come out. And that's how we've been doing it. Well, when we talk about Jesus, we make it very clear that there is a historical Jesus and there is a religious Jesus. And neither the historical nor religious Jesus, as he's presented, has anything to do with us as melanated people in a positive light. Okay? So when we speak of Jesus, we recognize that the so-called European Christians, when they first come out of Rome or out of the Aegean area with the Greek Orthodox Church and the likes, they came out with this idea of promoting their Hellenistic ways, their Hellenistic beliefs, their Hellenistic practices as normal. So they took this idea from you of the Nazarene or the Nazarite, right? Those who observe the rites of Nazir or Asaru, and they repackaged it and gave the credit to Julius Caesar, which many of us as Christians, regular Euro-Christians, don't realize that this Jesus Christ, or JC, is also the acronym for the name Julius Caesar, who is really the Christ of the Roman centurion who went on to become the Roman Catholic Church. Just like Julius Caesar is the historical Jesus that should not be confused with the African Musa Yeshua Kadesh, who was down at the Nile River Valley civilization. In this same manner, the so-called Islamic faith tells us that there's two people who lived as contemporaries. One's name was Ahmad Mahmud, which would be the African, and one's name was Musallima ibn Habib, who came from a place called Nej, right outside of the area called Saudi Arabia today. And this Musallima Muhammad would be the invading Muhammad, whose doctrine in time would vamp down on the original principles of Islam that taught discipline and family and worked as a collective, and turned it into what now has been named terrorism, or what we should recognize as terrorism and murders and things of that nature. So there's a historical Muhammad and there's a religious, quote-unquote, fictitious Muhammad. There is a historical Moses, which would be in their Greek writings, their Moses is called Mopsus, M-O-P-S-U-S. His name is Mopsus, not to be confused with the African cosmology and theology that speaks about Moses as the Moses the first, or who many also call Thutmose. So there's so many parallel doctrines that have moved and hijacked and bleached our theology that now it's time for us to take it back. I enjoy sports in general. I enjoy coaching children's sports, but my favorite sport of them all is chess. Because of the strategy that it teaches you and understanding its African roots and origin. I understand that playing it or watching or engaging in chess helps to stimulate the mind to be able to think outside of the box and develop some form of war strategy, if you will, to help us deal in interacting in a world today that is ruled over and governed by people who just don't care about you and I. As far as cinema, I would say my particular type of film is documentaries or true stories, as truthful as possible. Because for some reason mentally it just allows me to stay awake, because I'm saying, well, this happened. Whereas if I'm watching like a drama or a love story or something of that nature, I'm going to end up going to sleep. But I do enjoy films. I just know oftentimes I have to watch them in blocks, 20 minutes today, 20 minutes tomorrow, and inevitably I can get through the entire movie. But my favorites, again, would be documentaries and those based off of a true story. We have different branches, definitely. Located in Nassau, Bahamas, in Trinidad and Tobago, located in Jamaica, Gambia, Ghana, Tanzania, Kenya, Angola, London or UK. It's spreading, and it's spreading like wildfire. It's moving each day. All we have to do now is be ahead of the influx of people when they come. Well, I think England's an interesting place. You can be here for a week and not see the sun. You can be here in the summertime and experience all 4 seasons in one day. Because of its geographical location, and being further by geography or geographical location away from the sun, it makes England what it is. And not seeing the sun I do recognize it has an effect on people. It affects the hormonal production via the pineal pituitary gland and leaves the individual at a disadvantage.